Hi children, I am Tarun and I will be your chess instructor for the next phase. Let's once recap what we have learned till now. We have learned about all the 6 pieces in chess, how they move, where do they start and all. Let's recap. Let's start our recap with the pawn. The pawns in the chess game, the black pawns start on the 7th rank and the white pawns start on the 2nd rank. The pawns on the 7th rank and on the 2nd rank have the ability to move 2 steps at once. It's a choice. You can either move 2 steps or a single step. For example, white moves 2, black moves only 1, and next the pawns only move a single step at a time. And we also learned about a move called en passant. When the white pawn is on the 5th rank and a black pawn makes 2 moves, the white pawn has the ability to capture on the 6th rank. So this is called en passant. We also learned of how if a pawn reaches onto the last rank, I mean white pawn reaches to the 8th rank and the black pawns reach to the 1st rank, they have ability to promote to other pieces. This includes queen, bishop, rook and knight. The second piece that we are going to recap about is the rook. The rook in chess game the black rook start on h8 and a8, while the white rook start on a1 and h1. The rooks in the chess game can move vertically and horizontally as many steps as they please. For example, the white rook can move as many squares as it wants, horizontally and vertically. The rook also can capture pieces in the same way. For example, it can only capture pieces that are in its path. The rooks cannot jump over pieces. The next piece that we are going to recap is the bishop. The bishop in the chess game the black bishops start on c8 and f8. c8 and f8. The white bishops start on c1 and f1. Each side in the chess game has 2 bishops, a light squared bishop and a dark squared bishop. The bishops in the chess game only move in diagonals. For example, these are the squares that this bishop can move in. The bishops also do not jump over pieces and they can capture any pieces that are in their path. For example, this bishop is able to capture this. They do not jump over pieces. The next piece that we are going to recap is the knight. The knights in the chess game start in the b8 and the black knights start on b8 and g8, and the white knights start on b1 and g1. The knights move in L shape, 3 steps in L shape. For example, the knights move this way. These are all the pieces L shape. And the knights in chess game have a special power. They can jump over pieces. For example, if the bishop is for example, if the knight is here and it's blocking the path, this knight can jump over it and go over here. It's jumping over pieces. The knights also capture the pieces that they in the square that they go to. For example, this knight is able to capture the bishop. The next piece that we are going to recap is the queen. The queen is the most powerful piece in the chessboard. It can move any way, both horizontally, vertically and diagonally. It can be understood as the combination of both a rook and a bishop. The queen can move as many squares as it pleases and can move both horizontally and vertically. The queen also captures pieces that are in its path. This way. And the final thing that we are going to recap in the pieces that we have learned is the king, the most important piece in the board. The king moves only 1 step in any way, and the rules for the king are: the king cannot move into a check. What is a check? A check is when a king is under attack. When you look here, the bishop is able to move in this the black bishop on g4 is able to move in this diagonal, so the king cannot enter any of these squares. When the king is under attack, it's called check, and a check can be removed in we have learned that check can be removed in 3 ways. For example, if the white queen goes to h8, the black king is in check. The black king has to get out of check in any way. The first way black king can get out of check is by moving out of the check in this way. The second way the black king can get out of check is blocking the check with another piece. For example, getting the queen here blocks the attack of the white queen on the king. This way the black king can get out of check. The third way the black king can get out of the check is capturing the piece that is in check. The rook captures the queen on h8 and the king is out of the check. We also learned about a castling, an important move in chess. What is castling? Castling is a move that is an option available to the player if there are no pieces in between the squares in between the rook and the king, and the rook and the king have not moved from the starting squares. For example, in this case, the king there are no pieces between the white king and either of the rooks. So if the king castles, the king goes to g1 and the rook comes to f1. This is called kingside castling. When you castle on the other side, the king goes to c1 and the rook comes to d1 in this way. The same applies to black too. This is kingside castling and this is a queenside castling. We have also learned of the situations in which a king cannot castle. For example, if the king is under check, we cannot castle. In this case, when the queen takes the pawn on d7, the king is under check. The king cannot castle. He has to capture the queen. And also, in the same way, we cannot castle when the square in which the king is about to move to is under attack. For example, if the queen takes the pawn on a g7, the king cannot castle on the king side, as these both squares are covered by the queen. The king cannot move into check, so the king has to castle on the queen side. So this is castling. The next thing that we learned about is a checkmate. What is checkmate? Checkmate is when the opponent's king or your king is in check and is unable to get out of check. For example, in this position, if white plays the move queen takes f7, the black king is in check and the king cannot move or get out of check in any way possible. The queen cannot defend it, the bishop cannot defend it, and the king cannot take the queen as it is supported by the bishop. So in this position it is a checkmate and the player playing the white pieces wins the game. The purpose of the chess game is to checkmate your opponent's king, and that's how you win a chess game. We also learned of draws in chess, how the game can end in a draw. One of the most commonly seen ways in which a chess game can end in a draw is by stalemate. Stalemate is when the opponent has no possible legal moves. The opponent is not in check but cannot move anywhere. For example, in this position, if white king moves to c8, the black king does not have any other moves. The black king's all the squares are covered and the black king does not have move, but the black king isn't in check. This position is a stalemate and it is considered a draw. Each player gets half a point for this. Also, another way in which a chess game can end in a draw is by agreement. When two players look at a position and feel that they are both in equal standing, they can agree to a draw. The game also ends in a draw if there is insufficient material on the board to checkmate. For example, if white plays queen b8 check and the white king captures the queen, the game ends in a draw, as two kings cannot checkmate each other, and there is no way the game can end in a checkmate. So in this position, the game ends in a draw by insufficient material. In today's class, we'll have our first tournament in our VREAP Learning Center. The tournament will be taking in the Swiss format, in which most of the chess tournament all over the world take place, and this tournament that we will be having 8 rounds. So each of you will be playing 8 different games against 8 different opponents, hopefully. Each day we will be having 3 rounds, and on the first day, that is today, we will have 2 rounds of chess. The pairings of who will be playing against who and which pieces, whether white or black, you will be playing, will be intimated by your facilitator. The tournament will take place for 3 days, after which we will learn about development and tactics, 2 of the most important things that you need to consider when playing a chess game. So take out your chess kits and set up the pieces as in the starting positions, and your facilitator will inform you of who will be playing against who. All the best for the tournament. Children, now that you are going to play the tournament, keep in mind that the game is not about winning or losing, but it is to see what you have learned and applying what you have learned in the game. The game is to learn, develop, practice and improve your skill, and even if you win or if you lose, take the result gracefully. Keeping this in mind, you should always play to win. All the best for your tournament.